This is the chain which I found in Grada, rusting, and which I impressed into the paper on the beach. Sand is actually very good because it's very soft and you can push the metal into the paper so that it actually takes a larger part of the iron onto the surface of the paper. So it's much more satisfying. It's very important for me to have work in progress in the gallery. I don't think I can show work anymore without actually having a process that's occurring. In the first place, it explains the process without so many words to people that come in. They look at what's happening and they think, ah, that's how it's done straight away. And secondly, I think that's actually a very important part of the work, to have this area of an auspicious area, which is actually, there's something actually functioning, there's something actually happening. So here, these have been going for about 48 hours, and you can see, removing the metal, how stained the paper becomes, and it actually goes almost right through to the other side. So the paper becomes a piece of sculpture, and this is just a little play with pieces of wire, rusting wire, to try and get some kind of pattern, some kind of dance going. So these are dry. I'm just going to make a new work with this fantastic paper, which is actually 100% cotton. So when I'm working on the beach, I can chuck it in the sea, and the waves roll it around, and it doesn't tear and it doesn't crease. It's fantastic stuff, 100% cotton. Right. Seawater. Real seawater with pure salt. Extremely corrosive. Chuck it on. This is like a recipe for cooking, really. Spread it out. Make sure the water's soaked well into the paper. Both sides. There's something about seawater which is different to tap water. In London, I've been working with tap water. And touching seawater, there's something, I think, this thing about Gaia is a very relevant thing. There's something about seawater, swimming in it, touching it, there's something alive about it. And I think that this actually creates a sort of magnetic field, a sort of force field in the work, where you get streams of magnetic fields almost connecting the two works together, which I find fascinating, and that's like another alternative. So, place it on. Place it on. And just lay it there. Give a splash. Well, this all began actually in 1993 when I started collecting prints of tea bags, and I discovered that different teas give different colours and different tea bags obviously give different shapes, and I thought, when you stain your clothes, actually it's a real pain. It's a bit of a nuisance, but then I'm thinking, that's a permanent stain that we're talking about there, so there must be something about staining a material which is of interest, perhaps, as an artist. And I thought of pigments, and I thought, well, pigments stain the medium, stain the carrier, so why not have tea
And there was a bit of a pause since 1993, and more recently it's surfaced with work. So I found some small chains in the harbour in Grada, and these are just placed in the gallery space for about 2 days each, and just left to cook, as it were. And it's fantastic, because what happens is you come in after 2 days and the things spread into the paper. It's just so exciting, because for me it's like being a spectator, being somebody that's just come into the gallery, and I'm looking at my own work in that way. I'm just setting something in motion and letting nature reveal itself, letting nature do its act with the materials that I'm using. And that's satisfying for me at the moment, and I'll carry on doing it as long as I'm excited by it, I suppose, and then I'll stop and do something else. Okay. In 1995, very similar work I discovered on the beach, again in Grada, working with the surface of the Earth, in a sense working with the Earth's crust as a canvas. Digging in the mud, I discovered that it's black underneath. This is incredible, and on the top it's a slimy green, and there are yellow ochres, and if you slide it around, if you mix it up, you get different colours and different hues, and if you gouge it, you get the black. And I just thought this is a fantastic way to almost be painting, like as if you were painting with oils or acrylic. And that was an act, a sort of land art act, which was a sort of performance in a sense, because you have to balance yourself on this very slippery surface and make sure you don't fall over. You have to know when the low tides are occurring, so you get a table of tides and you have to work with nature, which is something that's close to my heart. And then you start to work on it, and I just found that I was making spontaneous marks, and there is no sense, there is no meaning in them really. They're universal, archetypal marks. It was an excuse to work with this medium, which is mud, basically, mud and water. And the interesting thing is there is an archaeological reference here, and as the tides were coming in day after day and sweeping around the work, it would actually dissolve it slightly and destroy it a little bit, but not completely. So you'd come back the next day and there'd be a little bit of it left, and this really underlined the idea of archaeology, which is something which applies to a lot of my work. It's very important, and I ask myself this very often, is why do the work? Why do it? Start from zero. Come in and look at the work as if you were a very sceptical passerby, and you come in and say, what's the point of this? I think that's a very important question. And I ask myself this, and I think, why am I doing it? And in the end, I think there's obviously a contact that I have with Grada in relatives and the parental contact. So, in a sense, the fact that I'm continuing the work here is very important to me. It's like an interaction. When I'm working on the shoreline, people come up to me and ask me what I'm doing, and I start to have an interaction with them, either positive or negative, but there's an interaction. And I just feel that I'm working with the place rather than just bringing work to a place, showing it and going back. So that cultural, socio-cultural aspect of it is very important to me, and makes the exhibition a much more valid proposition. An idea that occurred to me was that whenever I've been coming to Grada for 40 years, and I feel very absorbed into the culture, into the earth, the territory. And it's interesting that I brought something like trace elements here, where I'm placing a primal object like iron onto paper, and it's being absorbed into the paper. And because I very much work with parallels, philosophical parallels, I like the idea that I'm here and I'm also trying to learn the local dialect and integrate. And I have work which is being absorbed into the paper, so you can almost see the paper as Grado and the iron as me. Even just placing them there, straight away you start to get a rusting effect. The ferric, the oxide, starts to dismember itself from the metal. It's quite a fascinating thing to watch. It's almost like watching paint drying, but a little bit quicker. It's very interesting. I used to sit on the train and not want to photograph the view or sketch the view, but I had this bizarre idea that why isn't it possible to open the sketchbook, hold it against the window, and kind of allow the paper of the sketchbook to absorb something of the environment that is neither illustrative, didactic, or whatever, but is actually the essence of the environment. And in a sense, I've sort of got to that point with trace elements, which is taking local material and impregnating a piece of paper with it, and thereby taking an image, taking a photograph, taking a moment of that place and time, and actually staining the paper with it. So in a sense, I feel I've succeeded in getting to that point, but it always takes many years to get to from an idea to the actual execution. This is the chain which I found in the harbour and which has been in my bag every day when I go to the beach. I take it to the beach, I take it to the jetty, and causes much consternation amongst the local people, because they are sort of very curious about what I'm doing. And this is the chain which has been in my bag every day, and the paper is a print of that chain in a spiral, which is one of the works which I did on the jetty.